Welcome back to one of the few channels that was telling you that we're not seeing a large correction, that we're not going lower on BTC. Everyone else was wrong as usual. Today, we are talking about Bitcoin, current Bitcoin situation. Very interesting things are happening currently. I have to share the potential scenarios I'm seeing that might be unleashing on Bitcoin. We'll also talk about the alts. We'll try to respond to the main question. Probably you have some people that you know reaching out to you, hey, Bitcoin is 100K, so you're probably making so much money, but in fact you might be not doing, and you might not be making that much money, right? In for example, in comparison to the amount of money you were making in March or April of this year, right? I will also try to respond to this situation, the current situation with alts. I do think that a lot of people essentially don't expect that alts will be at these levels when BTC will hit $100,000. However, it just means that they should reprice heavily at this stage, and this is a very key thing out there. We talk about Solana briefly. Like I'm still quite bearish on this asset, and I will explain why, because I don't think I explained why before, and that's why it can cause certain aggression out there for some reason. But I'm just sharing my thoughts here. I'm not shorting Solana at this stage because I still think it should show new all-time high around like $300 per Solana, maybe 350, just to lure even more people in. And we also will go through the fact why all of the crypto participants are actually getting attracted back into the market. This is key out there, 100%. We'll also talk about 5 alt longs that I might actually suggest you to enter, but I would essentially give you a framework in general, right? Framework you would be able to use to actually figure out what alts you actually need to long at this stage. So without further ado, we have a lot of things to discuss today. Let's actually start. Bitcoin just broke through $100,000. You can definitely see this triangle pattern that we also did have here. Right now it's at $102,500. Congrats to all of us. I've seen a tweet that I don't think anyone understands, but we won forever, which is quite interesting. Obviously, the major risk point currently is Michael Saylor essentially unwinding as a company, and his company MicroStrategy essentially dying out, but probably it would be happening after the proper pumpage out there. It will probably be happening on a deeper correction after the bulk of this bull run movement, and we're definitely not there. 100K is definitely free marketing for people and for retail to enter as well, and a very interesting situation that we essentially have seen on BTC just several hours ago, exactly at around $102,000. The funding on BTC was 0.1, which is probably the craziest funding that I've ever seen on Bitcoin, like personally live. And I was sitting there and constantly thinking on the fact why it actually was happening. And then I finally was able to find the answer. Funding essentially shows the correlation, in a way, the correlation between opened longs and open shorts. The whole reason for BTC funding to be 0.1 is because most of the shorts, if not even all of the shorts, actually got liquidated. This is the liquidation map that you can see currently. There are some new shorts that were formed around $103,000 level, and I would say that they kind of make sense, because in these type of situations where shorts are fully removed from the market kind of has to find its balance. So like for short-term traders, it might be nice to short this thing, and I would explain you scenarios, and I would essentially share why I think that shorting might make sense. I'm not doing this personally. My goal is to be able to hold my longs, because one more time, the whole goal of the market makers currently is to get you out of your altcoin longs. Even get those people out of the altcoin longs that are illiquidatable at these stages, that entered at the bottoms, even get them out. And I will explain to you today how they actually are planning to do this. Very important information out there, right? So scenarios that I'm seeing essentially for BTC. First of them, people are screaming about $120,000 target. I don't understand how they came up with this target. I do believe that 110K is something that kind of makes more sense. Default very stupid scenario, both for Bitcoin and alts, is just to continue the surge up, because in general, and I think you can say it yourself as well, you're probably scared currently, especially if you are sitting in high leverage loans on alts, which I am currently. personally too, kind of scared at this stage because we've seen BTC correcting, alts were correcting. We see BTC going a bit higher. We see BTC dominance going a bit higher as well. Alts also essentially had a correction on this move up as well, which is kind of crazy. Like if you would essentially see BTC chart at this stage, they actually liquidated people here. They had these 3 weeks. They liquidated people here, and they also liquidated people through these pump because BTC dominance essentially surged up. And if you think about like market participants, I do think that actually like a very, very small amount of people, if you were doing this, you're probably just going to lose everything. But I do think that very, very small amount of people through this BTC run closed the altcoin long, sold the alts and longed Bitcoin or bought Bitcoin. I think very, very few people essentially did that. So to me, it seems like manipulation. The explanation might be that like a lot of retail essentially entered the market and they longed BTC, and that's why the fund on BTC went up. But it's almost like market makers, they're just pushing BTC, they're pushing the fund on BTC, and at the same time they are dumping the alts to essentially get people out of the long. So we've seen 5 attempts to get people out of altcoins currently. I do believe we are at the presence of the last 2 before the final altcoin run, which may play out or may not play out currently, because imagine the size of the psyop. People have seen Sui pumping like crazy. People have seen Dogecoin, Pepe. People have seen a bunch of alts out there as well pumping like crazy, and yet people are scared and afraid around entering alts, about entering longs, about holding them as well. This is like the size of the psyop. This is just crazy. And this is the pure job, the perfect job that is being planned and played currently by market makers to make sure to get people out of the longs. 2 other attempts that I'm seeing currently that might be happening. First of them is further increase in BTC dominance, which would essentially send meme coins a bit higher, and people that can't hold, they would essentially probably see certain liquidity leaving the alts, right? So some high leverage longs might get liquidated as well. And short-term traders, short-term people in the marketplace, there are a bunch of them. Like I'm seeing people currently hunting for short-term stuff. I will explain to you how you will get wrecked and how you will underperform heavily, right? It's like just this feeling making money in the process. I'm not waiting for 6 years and seeing greatest opportunity in 100 years of money making to be spending my time on trying to catch up short-term moves. It just doesn't make sense. I'm here to position myself to wait and to outperform heavily. This is what I'm doing. And based on the reaction, based on things that I'm seeing on the marketplace, very, very few people actually playing this like it. And I do like it, because if a lot of people will be playing it like this would mean that it's exhausted. There is no market inefficiency in this thing, and it means that just I can't make money this way, right? But coming back to our situation, let's actually pop up the chart of BTC dominance. So we see the BTC dominance reversal right here. There is a target of 58% on BTC dominance. I don't know if we would essentially breach in this thing or not, but the one thing I know and the one thing I see is that with each reversal of BTC dominance, meme coins start to pump. And I told you about this like back at the beginning, and at 21st of November, I already told you that, and I already showed this in the video. I'm just reiterate. With each and every reversal on BTC dominance, meme coins will try to essentially get pumped, but they will not be performing nicely. Despite certain outliers, we do have Skidog, right, that is surging up currently, which was called at $4 million and $20 million market cap in my private Discord, not by me, by members of private Discord, right? But you cannot find any links to it, right? So obviously some outliers, they might be moving, but overall, they are just completing the charts from my point of view, right? The ones that were not essentially, the ones that pumped already, and the ones that are correcting. Even Giga that launched on Coinbase, right? Like I'm still seeing this as bearish. I'm still thinking that it's just this final blow of top to push as much people as they only can into these things, so they can take profits on them and reposition into alts and kind of steal the money, and actually make sure that these people won't be able to make any money in the market as well. Because yeah, this is definitely the goal of the market makers. We do have some memes that that they might be breaking out at this stage, right? I also think that they will underperform altcoins heavily, especially on the longer term out there. It obviously depends on the meme currently, right? But like short term, I'm still bearish on these things. We might have outliers, right? But yeah, I don't think that this is where you should be in the marketplace currently. The only issue I'm seeing is that if we are seeing 58% BTC move up, it will probably be a longer correction, right? Because it's either we are moving like way higher to 120k or something, right? Which is not something I'm seeing currently, or we're just correcting heavier. And imagine the size of the situation that would be happening if we are going to this level, right? We are correcting from here, which means that alts will also be correcting and losing in the market cap as well, right? So alts, yeah, it's just crazy. Like 1 attempt, 2 attempt, 3, this drop as well, this pump also get you out of alts. And if we're seeing a correction currently, it will also be essentially getting you out of your altcoins. Something to check out is also total 3, and there are definitely some correlations with something that we've seen in March. Some not that positive correlations out there, because when we reached local high, in the matter of 2 to 3 days after this, we had a first huge correction to 12 to 13% out there, which definitely pushed the range of alts like down, right? Very, very deeply, which definitely pushed a range of alts down and definitely liquidated a bunch of people out there as well. This is essentially total 3. But overall, I do think that even if something like this will be happening, there should be certain rotation from sector to sector, and some things they will definitely be popping out. Something like Wild, for example, that did pop up just today. You can see it was in the uptrending movement, right? And essentially had a breakout. This is like part of my framework. Just look at the charts that are still at the bottom, that still did not pump yet from these levels. They should be breaking out, especially if you're seeing certain consolidation happening on the chart as well. Coming back to our BTC situation, because I did not explain 2 scenarios that I'm seeing. First scenario, everything is just going higher, going up. Alt season is just happening. Everything is going higher. The main premise for this thing to actually happen is the fact that everyone is still scared shitless, and everyone was calling for a correction, right? Everyone was wrong, despite me, except me, right? And even me, in my leverage longs on alts, in some of them, I'm actually not in profits, I'm in negatives, which is very, very interesting if you would essentially think about that, right? Crazy situation out there. So this is scenario number 1. Why it might happen, why we just might go higher, it's just because this is the most stupid thing to happen. And at the same time, people are still scared. So it will definitely cause huge FOMO. There will probably be thoughts essentially exercised by the market participants. Well, it's so high, I should probably not be entering. And eventually they will capitulate. And right at the time they will capitulate, we should be seeing like a larger correction that will definitely remove all the late long leverage from the marketplace out there. This is scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is more interesting. And if I were a market maker, I might essentially exercise this scenario at this stage, but it definitely would require like a little bit more time out there. So Bitcoin is at $100,000. Ethereum just broke out of the range as well. We've seen runs like Sui, and people are still not convinced on the alts, on the reprice on the alts out there. Imagine what great of a job the market makers essentially did already. The situation I'm seeing is essentially BTC entering chop, right? But not the chop where essentially your alts would be popping off and where liquidity from BTC would be going into alts. The chop where dominance would essentially be going higher, which means that in this chop, altcoins will be going lower, which means that all the late long leverage would be liquidated, right? And meme coins, they will move in the last short-term leg up, right, to suck up even more liquidity out of altcoins. So do you understand that in this scenario, liquidity will be sucked up by BTC, both into essentially Bitcoin and into meme coins as well. This is like a very, very nice setup out there. And if this flat type of boring price action will essentially continue, this would cause some people who have long the alts at the bottoms that are illiquidatable at this stage, it will push them to close some of these longs, because the funding is kind of high, and I do think that exchanges, they will keep the funding high through this period as well. So they keep the high funding on this flat, they push BTC, they push memes, they make people to essentially lose the liquidity out of alts into these two things, right? And at the same time, because of the high funding and because of the fact that we are in the flat, people are closing their longs, even the ones that are illiquidatable, because they're just getting bored. They think that, wow, something else is pumping, maybe I should like put some money into some meme coins out there and things like that. So this is a very, very interesting scenario out there. Just the thought that I have is that the scenario of pumpage is kind of similar from the point of view of BTC dominance and from the point of view of meme coins, because if BTC will continue to pump, we will probably see it suck some more liquidity out of alts. We will probably see pumpage on meme coins, because usually in the cycle with BTC dominance going higher, meme coins were pumping as well, which was kind of similar if you think about that. Like both scenarios from the point of view of how liquidity is getting sucked out of alts is kind of the same. Positive scenario, obviously alts just starting to pump with Ethereum continuing the breakoutage, right? And BTC kind of staying in the same level, so it still would be the same flat type of movement, just without the drops out there. Funding on a lot of altcoins also was decreased heavily. For example, in Heroes of Mavia, funding was 0.2 yesterday. Right now, I think it's 0.06 on Bybit, for example, right? And something like the situation that I'm trying to explain, the situation I'm seeing is definitely something that we're seeing on Mavia at this stage. This type of movement is definitely exhausting current people who are longing this thing, which is me, for example. I think I entered like late long into Mavia probably at 25th of November. Bunch of stuff did pump from that time, right? But Mavia, my late long is still a negative profit. So this is like crazy type of experience if you would imagine for like a default person out there. They will probably just close the long, they will leave this asset, and they will just buy into something that is pumping up currently, because this is unfortunately the fate of the participants on the marketplace, right? And locally, if you check out the pattern locally on the altcoins, a lot of them, they're essentially printing this type of pattern out here. And I would say that we should not be seeing the move down below these levels. I would say even below these levels. And a lot of alts, like most of the alts, they have this local short-term thing out there on the charts currently. If we're going lower, we'll probably be seeing a very, very nice wick down, right? That will liquidate a lot of long leverage out there, because not a lot of people are essentially planning for something like this to happen. I'm not strictly speaking about Mavia currently, I'm speaking about most of the alts out there, right? And after that, they would be essentially sending. So imagine the situation, imagine the scenario where they are letting the BTC chop, they are letting the BTC dominance to go higher, they are letting meme coins to run to suck up liquidity out of alts, BTC is sucking liquidity out of alts because dominance is essentially going higher, right? At the same time, alts essentially entering this corrective flat, they are entering it with high funding rates, so people who are longing, they have to pay high funding, and they understand it. And at the end of the whole thing, they do drop it below these levels to liquidate, pretty much liquidate almost anyone who entered like with more than 4x leverage in this range. Like this is just evil. But this way they will essentially establish the move up for them, where the smallest amount of people would essentially be present in altcoins out there. And this is something I would be doing if I would be market making the market currently at this stage, right? Because one of the thoughts I essentially have is on the reason of why Mavia is not moving is because I'm longing too much of it, right? They just see that my open interest and my leverage is just too large, and that's why they're not pushing the asset higher, right? Because they're afraid that I would essentially be taking profits on them, and this is the shakeout that might be happening. I do think that it's easily might be the case out there. I hope I explained the situation in case of Mavia, right? So still the same tips can be applied at this stage. Enter low leverage longs. Once they go higher, you can always increase the size of the positions that you have out there. The goal currently should not be to make money. It's ideal case. The goal currently is to survive, because all alts, they should be repricing heavily. We are at BTC and 100K. They should be eventually repricing heavily. And another confirmation that you just got yesterday, because previously you might have thought that, yeah, BTC is at 100K, but nothing is happening, and that's why I should probably not enter alts and, I don't know, play Solana meme coins or something. We had a breakout on Ethereum from this giant triangle pattern essentially as well, right? We definitely had this breakout. Ethereum should continue to surge up. Honestly, it should be setting new all-time high this month as well, preferably, right? And with the surge up on Ethereum, alts will be surging higher as well. So we are currently either in the final stage of the manipulation, where it just like on a daily basis, like a very small amount of days is actually left before we finally send. And like weekly days wise, it also makes sense, because we're in a Thursday currently, and they can just cause like a bloodbath on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They can just cause the bloodbath for the altcoins out there. It would be just genius out there, and I will get liquidated on a bunch of things myself as well. Like I would definitely not want to see something like this, right? And other scenario is that we are due some pain, like 1 week with us essentially correcting, with alts correcting, with meme coins surging, with liquidity leaving alts, right? This is one of the tools that I would say that they did not exploit fully at this stage yet, right? The process of getting people out of the loans through time, because it's hard to wait on your things in the bear market, and we have something like time capitulation out there. But in this case, it might be even worse, because some things they would be pumping out there 100%, and you still have to hold your assets, right? You still have to essentially do this. So I also wanted to explain my strategy to you, and explain why I actually came up with the thought that it does not work to most people, because I'm seeing essentially views going a bit down on the channel. I'm feeling like certain hate that might essentially be directed towards me, but I didn't understand this, because most people, the strategy does not work for most people, because most people they will not be making millions out of this market. They will just be losing the opportunity out there. So the strategy I'm exploiting is essentially longing low cap assets out there, right? And just waiting. And I do understand that I might be outperforming in the short term 100%, and on some of the assets, like, it's definitely happening out there. That's why, like, I'm kind of trying to play with larger caps longs out there. Just that I do think that my risk tolerance is way better than most of the market out there. But like default stable money, yeah, you should just long some like large assets, like, I don't know, like Arbitrum, DYDX, Render, all these things, and you can just be making your money on the moves with them. And obviously you can increase in leverage on them, so you would be making even more money. But here we are about essentially the degenerate money making things in crypto that often yield nice results out there. So I'm longing low cap alts, right? And I'm just sitting there. I'm just waiting. One thing is that if you're essentially longing low cap alts with nice positions out there, is that you don't even need them to overperform, because with the slightest movement, because they're low cap, the market cap percentage wise will be moving like crazy as well, which essentially would mean that your longs, they will be appreciating like crazy. So imagine getting like a 2x on something like DYDX. It essentially required like 2 months, right? And imagine getting a 2x on some like 100, 200, 300 million market cap altcoin that you're longing, for example, currently. Yes, you might have to wait, but when liquidity will be coming, it should be pushing the price, the market cap of this thing heavily, right? So I would say the default example out there is about short-term gratification and long-term gratification. And things in life that yield the most results, they are always about long-term gratification, right? And people, they're definitely more inclined to experience short-term gratification. Everyone just wants to constantly rotate, but I do believe that if the assets I'm longing won't be dying out, and I don't think that they will, because they're protected by the speculative value at this stage of the altcoins. They're still very, very underpriced, but this is the worst case scenario, obviously, if they will just be dying out. So I think I will end up outperforming, just because of the fact that these alts will eventually move up as well. They move higher as well, and the percentage will be way higher, right? And it's kind of like you're taking, yeah, like you're planning for a risk-on scenario before the risk-on scenario essentially appeared, right? But at the same time, I'm still trying to make some money on some things that are essentially running currently, and the things that market is seeing that then and things that market is seen as less risky. Therefore, following risk tolerance of default people, they essentially entering the longs for them as well. If you think about one of the craziest longs that happened in 3 to 4 weeks, which was public, XRP loan by Carl de Moon, who longed $220,000 on 8x leverage, and he made $5 million in 4 weeks. You should ask yourself a question: why he was able to make this type of money, and who actually was holding 4 weeks ago, was longing 4 weeks ago XRP with this amount of money. I would say very, very small amount of people did, and very, very small amount of people actually were able to hold this long for all this time as well, because it's not just about entering, it's also about execution. Execution here is just being able to hold and understand the potential upside out there. So this is definitely something that was being viewed as very, very degen, as a very, very small amount of people essentially did, even despite the fact that I think he publicly called it and he was showing it as well, right? I think a bunch of people, they essentially just closed this long before it came to the full power out there. But this is how you're getting outsized returns on this market. By exploiting something, by doing something that is being risky, being degen out there. And this is just one of the strategies that I'm sharing. It's a very, very stupid one, because the only thing you have to do is you have to work with your doubts about, well, maybe this asset will not pump up eventually, maybe it's dead, maybe nothing is happening, and things like that, right? So this is the only thing that you have to, and obviously just seeing a lot of things out there pumping, but for the part of your portfolio, you can just always allocate it and try to play out these short-term rotations, and this is essentially the way. It's just that in comparison to others, I'm not allocating like most of my portfolio into safe picks, right? And just playing with small part of it. I'm allocating most of my portfolio into degenerate things that I assume others will come to eventually when we are in the full risk on. And with the part, I'm also playing in all this like game, trying to make some money short term currently to use them in leverage in my degen things out there, because I do think that over time they would be yielding much more money out there. One of the examples of degen things I mentioned is Mavia there. The other could easily be GHST. I just randomly found this coin. This is like a $70 million gaming coin that is available on Coinbase, right? Although I do believe that the presence of assets on Coinbase over time, like it's definitely the value of the presence of assets on Coinbase definitely diminished already, and over time it will get diminished more and more, because they started to list a bunch of things like Giga out there, and we're seeing that even currently these things are not seeing the pump. Obviously because of the fact that smart people do understand what is happening, and they're taking the profits to essentially position themselves into alts. And also because of the fact that with each new listing, the profits from this listing is always diminishing, right? Is always decreasing. I do also even think that like Pepe Pump with Coinbase listing was kind of a bit forced as well. Like it was a bit manipulated to get the largest amount of people possible, and essentially to take some profits on them as well. But we'll see on this one. I explained scenarios, I explained my alt situation and how I'm essentially playing this market, so it would be clear to you. If you want to follow this long-term strategy, I'm just telling you what you should be expecting, because it's not about like, it's great if these things are making money short-term, right? But it's not about that. I'm not wasting 1 in 100 years opportunity on making money short term, and I do understand that within the more trades, the more rotations I need to make, is the high chance to underperform. My goal is to enter longs and to be able to hold them and to be able to survive with them as well, because the core thing currently about survival. Solana, something I want to talk as well. I've seen some tweets today that like something is like this high, Solana should be at least, yeah, I've seen a tweet that BTC is at 100K currently, so Solana should be way higher than this. Might be. I don't think it will be going to new all-time highs. Let's think about what Solana did to the cycle already at this stage, right? I don't think this is like the highest liquidity extractor in the whole crypto history at this stage. I do think that billions of dollars were stolen by people exploiting Solana ecosystem. It's quite interesting that all was started by the CEO of Godbit, who's in jail in the US currently, which is quite interesting, right? But probably is in jail for some other things. But essentially what happened is that through this meme season, there was a bunch of extraction that started to happen and is still happening. Scammy influencers, scammy developers, pump fund type of platforms that they definitely extract liquidity out of the market. None of this liquidity is coming back into the market 100%. Trading bots with crazy fees out there, and liquidity is not coming into the market as well. And like very few people, I do think, were essentially able, like very small percentage of people were essentially able to make nice gains with Solana memes, were able to take profits at the proper time, and essentially were also and would be able to do it eventually, right? Because a lot of them, I do think they're wrong at this stage, and they will be given a lot of the profits back into the market, 100%. This is something I'm seeing currently. So far this thing was used as a giant extractor of money out of the space. And moving further, we will have a very large and huge upside in alts going crazier and crazier and higher. So like Solana, kind of like the perfect bull case for Solana kind of played out already. And this is why I'm saying that we should not even be seeing 400 Solana this cycle as well. On top of this, we will have giant unlocks in March on Solana, and that will definitely just get dumped into the market because it's just too big out there, or it will cause just too much fear out there happening. So with each new percentage of BTC dominance drop, I expect meme coins to do worse and worse. And Solana is kind of like the main thing around them, right? And that's why I'm saying that even like cycle-wise, because they will be coming back, right? 100% memes, they will be coming back. Not now. I do think that they will also be coming back later than some people predict and project on the marketplace currently. Yeah, it's interesting. It obviously would be happening when altcoin upside will get exhausted. And the thing with altcoins is that you cannot like create them out of thin air always. Like you have a limited amount of good projects out there, and when like shitty projects will be receiving attention and liquidity, this is the time to essentially think about exiting the whole thing. I just wanted to elaborate and explain on my take on Solana. I think that product market fit reached, like not the product market fit definitely was reached. I would even say that bull case was reached, right? And when everyone is talking about like $500 per Solana, $1,000 a Solana, and this is their first cycle, and all they did, they were trading meme coins, and they were able to make like $20,000, and this is the first money that they ever made in their lives. Yeah, you have to understand what type of advice you're essentially getting from what people. But this is just my overview. It's a very blatant statement, and it's hated heavily, but the one who's usually hated on is usually right, all right? All players attracted back into the market. So this is the tweet from Miles that I actually wanted to share. I did like it because of the fact that I told you about this several days ago, right? Let's actually go through all of these tweets because they're quite nice. XRP is bringing the normies back. BTC is bringing TradeFi mainstream retail back. Hype is bringing the on-chain degens back. Every segment of the market is perfectly aligned in their own way. Perfect storm. This is something I told you several days ago. Essentially, meme season attracted people who are broke under the age of 22, 24. And XRPs and all these older coins pumps, it's attracting everyone who ever touched crypto again. And I do think that most of this liquidity will eventually be focused on newer alts from this cycle in the sectors that are doing well, altcoin sectors, right? So AI, we kind of definitely seen that. I'm betting on gaming heavily just because of the fact, to be honest, I don't understand AI that well. Like I don't understand the upside there. To me, it kind of looks like a bubble, which is kind of interesting because this is something that a lot of people were probably speaking about meme coins. I know how to value memes. I don't know how to value AI coins out there, right? BTC $100 at $2,000, Sol to $135. Bro, Sol should be 3-4x of this. Yeah, this is something I just shared. A very interesting take. from someone who is actually definitely like a member of retail market. Do not buy Bitcoin right now. Let me say that again. Do not buy Bitcoin right now. The price has skyrocketed to $100,000 and the so-called expert screaming for you to jump in are nothing more than opportunistic predators. Definitely who we are. We just sit in our longs. We are waiting for liquidity to come in. And the ones that would be the patients, the most patient ones, they would be taking the most. Salivating and the chance to prey on your fear of missing out. These shills, these con artists are orchestrating a classic pump and dump scheme, lining their own pockets while leaving you holding the bag. Be smarter than they think you are. The market always corrects. Wait for Bitcoin to drop to $60,000. I don't think it's happening all over before even thinking about investing. It's quite interesting that she still kind of tells you to buy Bitcoin. So she still tells you to buy Bitcoin, just not at these prices, right? Don't be fooled by the greed and lies. The people hyping Bitcoin at this price are not your friends. They are the reason so many hardworking folks get burned. Stay vigilant and don't let the scammers win. The fact that billions of dollars were extracted through Solana ecosystem this year definitely shows that scammers win. So I don't think that it will essentially save anyone. Think we are here BTC. So this one is very, very interesting because you need to focus. He's saying that we're here, so we still have a move up on BTC, right? Quite large one because we even have a small wick here. So chart wise, I would based on my just view, on my eye view, I would just say it's like 15 to 20%, right? And it's only BTC. Before this huge correction that will essentially get out long leverage out there. And yeah, I do think that this correction will be happening 100%. It's just that I told you before that it's not happening currently, which is exactly that happened. Most of the channels with hundreds of thousands of views, they were screaming about these corrections on all the private chats, were essentially screaming about that. They're all wrong, and currently they're celebrating 100K BTC. Kyle actually was one of them who was bullish. What altcoins are you most bullish for this mega altcoin season? The reason I bookmark this is because when you are seeing something like this from large accounts, you kind of want to try to be a bit cautious, right? And it's still hard. Like you're thinking like, is this the time to just turn off your brain? To a certain extent, it definitely is, right? And one more time, the thought that I wanted to reiterate on. I do remember around this time, I was giving a Russian speaking interview out there and I said that the fact that I'm scared, the fact that we are scared, definitely shows that there should be further move up that should be happening. Because the time when you are not scared is the time to essentially take profits. And for example, in April, I was not scared. I was making videos like, hey guys, it's all going to come back and things like that. I was definitely not scared. I was even scared in March, right? But in April and May, I was not scared. I don't think people get it. We won forever. So this is a very interesting take from other trades, right? And yeah, if you essentially accept this is crazy. Obviously, the risk that we have is that MicroStrategy just unwinding. But it will probably, if this would be happening, it will probably be happening after the peak of this bull cycle. It should not be here at this stage. Maybe one last time just for the memories, then Alt BTC pairs up in 2025. So Benjamin Cohen essentially calling altcoins to heavily outperform BTC. And most of them on the last 2 weeks, they already did that. And this is something I'm screaming to you. I essentially started first talk about this around two weeks ago. I would say 1.5 week at this stage, when no one was talking, when very, very few people were talking about this, especially people who are in meme coin space. Something that I wanted to show as well, GM with Bitcoin breaking through 100K at last. We were told long ago it would never happen. In many cases, those who said it are now BTC cheerleaders. Funny how that works. And even if you don't own BTC, enjoy it. It is a huge psychological milestone for the space that will be talked about everywhere and will bring new capital inflows into the whole space, and the tide will lift all the boats. Yeah, so this is definitely something that I'm seeing, because the best marketing is number go up, and number being at 100K, people are definitely speaking about it. They definitely get to know about it, right? And the further up we go, the more they will be inclined to FOMO in. And they still might have some blockers that, well, I lost money last time, it's probably a scam, things like that. It'll probably get dumped on, which will probably happen, to be honest. But the higher price goes up, the higher price go, less of these objections they would essentially have. They want you to think memes are dead. Do not believe their lies. Fly into memes, you fools. I think it's fully wrong at this stage, like totally wrong. I do expect, well, if he's talking about, like, it's hard because even in the future he would be able to explain it this way. If he's talking about short term, if we're seeing this longer correction on alts with consolidation and with long leverage liquidations out there, and with us essentially seeing liquidity flowing out of alts into memes and BTC, then he's right, short term, right? But the gains out there, they are not even worth losing. They're definitely not worth losing the positions that you have in alts currently, because you never know, right? But midterm, he's definitely wrong, like 100%. I was saying that, and I'm saying this again. He's definitely wrong. They are going to correct more, and people still care about memes. And one thing I actually kind of liked yesterday, because I've seen on the drop of alts, memes started to pump, which I liked, because it means that people are still into memes, means that people still don't believe my thesis, and obviously my channel is quite small at this stage, which means that there is high chance I would essentially be making money. Because when people agree, yeah, that's not something I essentially want to see, because I know that this is probably something where I won't be making money. That's why I'm quite cautious and quite maybe stressed at this stage, because I'm seeing a lot of larger channels calling gaming season, right, to happen. My video about gaming coins, it was like more than 1 week ago, right? But some of these things, they essentially become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and a lot of them, they were essentially calling for AI season, and AI season definitely happened and is happening still. By the way, altcoin wise, we're still in the accumulation at this stage. Most of the alts are still in the accumulation, following the cycle-wise situation out there. But this is the time to enter, obviously. Black Swan in common, aliens, pin it. So yeah, this is something I just wanted to share. Would be crazy if something like this would be happening. Top 5 alts to essentially long. I will probably just tell you the alts that I'm logging and explain the reasons behind them. But I think you have 2 different scenarios currently. I would say even 3. You can long altcoins to essentially have new boomers coming back into the market as your exit liquidity. Things about like Dash, like, so things essentially about XRP, right? Second thing is to try to guess the narrative and long things that you think that liquidity will be coming into next, which probably will be yielding the highest result, right, midterm and long term. But the downside is that you have to wait, and you might need to wait for quite some time, and you might need to wait sitting through essentially other things pumping, and you might get liquidated at the same time. So yeah, it's definitely harsh, and that's why it's yielding the greatest results out there, right? So from my point of view, for example, one of the niches is gaming. Third option is longing things that are in the breakout currently, right? So at the start of the breakout, just try to spot these things, constantly be active in the market, and just be longing things that are breaking out, and just take a small bit of profits out of them and try to play in this way. So for example, one of the candidates for this currently is Ethereum. Ethereum is definitely on the edge of the breakout, right? So you might long Ethereum, and you'll probably be able to take certain movement out there. It should be going to at least 4,300 at this stage. Things I'm logging myself, Mavi, the first one. I'm honestly getting exhausted personally on this long already, because like it's consolidating in the sideways price action, which is actually a good sign. Will I close it? No, I will just long, right? And the main mind frame that you should have is because of the low market cap. You don't need this thing to outdo other coins on the marketplace, because once it starts to move higher, percentage increase will be crazy. So you will be making your money anyway, right? Second thing I'm longing is Blast, right? This is a wrong chart. So I do think it's one of the most underperforming altcoin out there in the marketplace, especially between layer 2s. I longed it as essentially betted to the current Ethereum surge up. And a lot of FUD about this thing is happening, which means that there are reasons for this thing to be at the levels as it is. Despite this, technically it follows all the levels. It actually moves quite nicely, right? So we'll see what will be happening with this one. It's definitely like Degen. It's definitely risky out there, right? Definitely risky. But My bet is it's just a beach ball underwater. It's suppressed, it's flooded, and it's like a $300 million market cap currently. It's also like a Ethereum layer 2, right? If you want to be like a bit safer, you can think about something like Metis, which I shared at $47, right? This is just a proper Ethereum layer 2 that's adopted by the market. There is no FUD happening around this thing, so, and kind of chart is a bit similar, right? So should be fine. Between some other like more stable things, you definitely have DYDX. Also nice chart, but you have to know that, yeah, this is the conservative target. We almost reached the conservative target out there. So you would be logging the resistance at this stage. I would still say that might be done with lower leverage, but this is actually one of the reasons of why I am quite cautious, because they really can be printing cup and handle out here. And this would mean that all the leverage longs, they will unfortunately get liquidated out there, right? And even total 3 wise, if you would look at the larger time frame, well, we kind of printed cup and handle already, right? So if you think something like this, 100%. But what if we are in the larger cup and handle? And what if we would be printing the handle currently? This will also liquidate a bunch of late longs out there. So this is why I'm kind of cautious about this thing. This one, I was already showing this. It's a very, very low market cap gaming coin, and that is on Binance. Like I'm longing this one as well. The overview is pretty much similar. It's interesting because it kind of like does not move to the market in 100% correlation. I would say mainly because it's probably like more focused on Asian market. At the same time, it's on Coinbase, which is a US exchange, which is quite funny and quite interesting. Illuvium is nice in between like older gaming coins. It's also like it should be considered Ethereum, better play out there. So all these things like Illuvium, like Gala, like Axie Infinity, you can find your entries. Just be careful at this stage, because they're definitely pumped already. And in general, like I do think at this stage, if you would be longing, just enter with low leverage, because the goal is not to get liquidated, and the goal to understand that each $1,000 that you have is pretty valuable, because by default you can put like your $1,000 into Ethereum, and you should have like 3 to 4K by the end of the cycle at least, right? So you should not be losing money. But at the same time, you're losing money in essentially an expectation to make way more, right? So it's up to everyone to essentially manage the risk out there. Mirror is also something I like, right? Chart looks interesting. It's also a gaming coin out there. But yeah, you also would be essentially longing the resistance out there. But if there were ever a time to long resistance in the history of crypto market, this is the best time to do this. Wow, 50 minutes video. Sorry guys, this is the overview. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if my strategy is clear to you, it's definitely not for everyone. It's definitely not something to use if you want to play short-term games with rotation trading. I just know that it yields less, and I just know that like I'm not the best player out there, because for this game to really yield in nice, like you need to be quite experienced, quite expert in these things as well. So thank you very much for watching this channel. Stay healthy and rich. I'll be seeing you tomorrow. Bye bye.